It is difficult to understand the Evangelion franchise without Kaworu Nagisa. He plays a crucial part at the end of the story. However, his figure is still wrapped on mysteries. He just appeared on one episode for a total of 13 minutes, and quickly he became a fan favorite. Also one of the most recognizable faces of the franchise. But still, a lot of mysteries around his figure. Where did he came from? Why he waited until that moment to appear? Why he is so fond of Shinji? Who is he looking for? What he is exactly? I will respond to all of these questions on this video. This is Kaworu Nagisa's story. This is Evangelion's Second Coming. In order to understand Kaworu's full story and iconic representation, we have to pull information out of the extended lore, these being statements by the show's creators, especially Hideaki Anno, supplemental sources such as the Red Cross book, video games, and finally the manga. Rebuild, however, is not part of the main continuity and it has its own universe. Therefore, we can safely discard it for the purposes of this video. With that being said, let's begin. Kaworu Nagisa is first introduced in episode 24, which is considered to be the last canonical story of the original run, as the original episodes 25 and 26 were replaced by the end of Evangelion. Shinji is lost on his thoughts and dealing with the loss of his friends. At this point, he is on the brink of a mental breakdown. But then, a gentle figure appears next to him, Kaworu, sitting on the remains of an Eva that closely resembles the form of an angel, as we can see from what seems to be angel's wings. Very curious, as we know by the end of the episode that Kaworu himself is an angel. Chemistry is immediate between the two of them. Kaworu's kindness is exactly what Shinji needs, as he feels that he has been betrayed by everyone, including Rei, Asuka, and Misato. Kaworu is different, not only by the fact that he is a boy like him, but also a fresh face that is not associated by his past traumas, a breath of fresh air. Kaworu was sent as a replacement for Asuka by the Marduk Institute. I already made a video on the Marduk Institute and the role on selecting the childs. You can find that video on the annotations on the upper right corner of your screen. During his first synchronization test, Kaworu achieved an outstanding score, which brings suspicious to Misato. This is simply not normal. Even that Shinji was able to synchronize with his Eva immediately on episode 1, his synchronization levels were inferior to those of Asuka's, as she always achieved the best scores in the past. That's it until now. Kaworu's levels are simply off the chart. The reason is simple. Evangelion Unit 2 is not only the first non-prototype Evangelion unit, but also is an Adam clone. This is important as Kaworu is in reality an angel, and all angels come from Adam, for the exception of two, Lilith and the Lilins. But there is more to that story, which I will address in a minute. Kaworu then meets with Rei 3, in which he states that both of them had adopted Lilin's form. Notice that he says Lilins and not Lilith, as we know that even though the Lilins, or humans, come from Lilith, they do not share her form, as Lilith is only the source of human souls and the seed of knowledge. By this account, Kaworu is letting the audience believe that he and Rei are the same. Although this is true up to some degree, they are in fact counterparts, as we are revealed later on the episode. This interaction is very important for Rei 3, as she at this point is still trying to figure out what and who she is. Kaworu just hits her with a dose of truth. She is not human, and that both of them share a destiny. This will be the starting point of her emancipation from Gendo Ikari, as we see it fulfilled on the end of Evangelion. At this point, Kaworu has been entitled with the role of a messenger. He does not have any personal ambitions, he does not have any greed or hate. Everything that he speaks is the truth. He is the embodiment of an angel. On this part of the story, the show has become grim, dark, and confusing. All of our favorite characters are either dead or crumbling. Kaworu is in fact a positive change to the whole narrative. He reminds us, as an audience, how bright and fun this show used to be. Now the storytelling makes us feel miserable. Kaworu's heart is pure, and he admires humans and what humans have achieved. In his interactions with Shinji, there is a moment that he misinterprets some words that Shinji says and that he wanted to sleep with Kaworu. Kaworu knows that sex is the pinnacle of human interactions, and is something that he is open to, just to feel what humans feel. However, even though it might seem that Kaworu is homosexual, and his sexual orientation has been debated for over 25 years in the community, the reality is that he is asexual, just as the rest of supernatural beings on the show. Translation from Japanese and the use of ambiguous terms has made it look as such. One of the main themes of the story is communication. After 24 episodes, we can agree that all of our favorite characters have problems to communicate with each other. Kaworu, however, does not have that problem. He says things as he feels it, and even though most of his dialogue is confusing to say the least, the way he says it brings peace and comfort. Then Kaworu refers to the hedgehog dilemma and explains it to Shinji. The metaphor is used in this context to tell the audience, and Shinji to this matter, that it's alright to be alone. But even in company, you will still be alone, as the whole meaning of being a human is being alone. However, if you risk it and open to others, you may discover something new. Not all humans' interactions are negative. Angels can feel loneliness as well. On my previous videos, I explained how some angels try to communicate with the childs. Lilin to Shinji, Arael to Asuka, and Armisael to Rei. Lilin basically committed suicide when Shinji rejected him, and Armisael was destroyed by Rei too when he was trying to impregnate her. Arael and Asuka, however, never ended their interaction, as he was destroyed by Rei too and the Longinus Spear. Kaworu, as his antecessors, also feels loneliness. He knows that he is going to be eternal, and he feels that Shinji deserves to be loved. We are told in the episode that Kaworu was born the day of the second impact, but the show does not develop this story. This is where we have to take a look at the extended lore to understand the darkest secrets of Kaworu, and for that we have to go all the way back to year 2000. Let's rewind. During the Katsuragi expedition, the scientist, then ordered by Seal, executed the contact experiment that made Adam to wake up from his frozen state. We actually do not know how the experiment was conducted step by step, but basically the goal was to reduce Adam to an embryonic state using the Longinus Spear. This is very well documented. Therefore, we can assume that at some point, the scientists tried to alter Adam's DNA. This is important, as we know that Gerin did the same thing with Evangelion Unit 1, which is a clone of Lilith. When Gerin succeeded with their contact experiment, the human donor was Yui Ikari. She was then absorbed by the Evangelion unit, and her soul remained within throughout the story. Gendo was then able to create Rei from Yui's remains and Lilith's soul. If the Katsuragi expedition wanted to do the same thing, then we have an Adam instead of a Lilith clone, but we are missing the donor. We are missing the Yui Ikari that gave life to Rei. However, there are two characters that we know of that were there, Dr. Katsuragi himself and his daughter, Misato. Is it possible that Dr. Katsuragi was acting as Yui Ikari did in 2004 and wanted his daughter Misato to witness his soul merging with Adam as Shinji did? Or was it possible that Misato was the one who should unify with the Light Giant? This will explain Misato's presence on the expedition. Even that this is open to speculations, we do not know for sure who was the human donor. But we do know that Kaworu was born that way. Seal captured Adam's soul and incarnated it on Kaworu. This means that his soul is Adam's, as Rei is Lilith's. Adam failed in his attempt for instrumentality. And even that the world was left in a very bad shape, humanity survived. According to the expanded lore, Kaworu did not live in hiding for 15 years, but in fact he was on an LCL field pod under Seal's supervision the same way that we see Rei on the show. He was taught only one thing. He needed to merge with his physical body and destroy humanity. This will elevate him to a god, the sole survivor, and eternal loneliness. Let's jump back to episode 24. After his interactions with Rei 3 and Shinji, Seal makes contact and orders him to fulfill his destiny. It's time to begin instrumentality. Kaworu then goes for Eva Unit 2, his clone. He does not enter the unit for two reasons. Number 1, Asuka's mother's soul is in it and could cause interference. And number 2, he does not need to. Then he starts his incursion towards the Terminal Dogma, where he's supposed to find and reunite with his body. Shinji goes after him without understanding what's going on, other than he was betrayed. Rei 3 realizes that Kaworu is Adam as she is Lilith. She starts to embrace that as appears suddenly on Nerve's computers to then disappear. Chaos overtakes the headquarters. The climax of the story has begun. Tabris, the 17th angel, finally reached Adam. But it was not Adam. It was in fact Lilith. Now he understands he has been used. He was used by Seal as Shinji and Rei are being used by Gendo Ikari. Tabris recognized Lilin's sins as they deserve to be punished. Nevertheless, gentle souls like Shinji's deserve to be saved. He then decides to surrender to Shinji. He is willing to sacrifice himself for humanity. Tabris is the angel of free will. Kaworu, as Tabris, recognizes this. He will not only emancipate Rei 3 and Shinji, but also he will emancipate himself from Seal, leaving behind a warning to humanity pointing out their sins, as Lilims will have to face their own destruction against themselves, as we see on the end of Evangelion. Kaworu's story is full of mysteries and misconceptions, as general audiences do not understand what he represents. Throughout this video, I have highlighted his kindred soul, his purity, his ability to forgive, his reincarnation. Beyond being Adam's soul and the final messenger, this is Hideaki Anno's representation of Jesus Christ in the Evangelion universe, as he tried to save mankind from itself. Guys, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you liked the video. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I publish Evangelion and other anime related content on my channel every week, and I hope to see you there very soon. Have a wonderful day.